All right, here we go. This is what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about saying the words, I'm sorry. I know it's only 3 words, and they're very short words. I am sorry. Those are words that are so difficult for so many people, including myself, to say incredibly often. And so while I was kind of studying for this episode, I came across an article online. It's found on heartspoken.com, and it was written by Elizabeth Cottrell. And she said she came up with 8 reasons on why it's hard to say I'm sorry. The first one that she put out was the fear of rejection. The fear that maybe they're going to lose respect for you, or you're going to come across vulnerable and weak. Number 2 was embarrassment and shame. The idea of breaking down when you apologize is embarrassing, or bringing to light what you did wrong or what you said wrong. Oftentimes there's shame attached to it. Number 3, it's not going to make a difference anyway, so why apologize? That person doesn't like you. You really don't like them. It's not going to make a difference at all. You rarely even see that person when that person is so hard-headed. Their heart is made like stone, so why even apologize? Why do it? The number 4 reason she gave is it shouldn't be necessary. They know I'm sorry. And because they know I'm sorry, why should I go make this big stand or have this awkward conversation? They should already know that, and they do know that. Number 5, a sense of unworthiness. We don't deserve to be forgiven. What I said or what I did is unforgivable. Oftentimes we don't even forgive ourselves, so why ask someone to forgive us? Number 6, a sense of self-righteousness. And I like how she puts this. It says, oftentimes we're so angry and hurt that we feel like our position doesn't merit an apology. Number 7, fear of losing. If I say I'm sorry, it makes me the loser and makes them the winner. And that throws the dynamics of the relationship off. If we say I'm sorry, oftentimes we're not saying sorry, we're saying I lost, you won, I'm wrong, you're right. Number 8 is denial. If I don't say anything at all, this whole situation will just go away. Now, if you boil down all 8 of these reasons on why we do not say I am sorry, if you boil them down, they can be summed up in 2 words: fear and pride. Fear and pride. And so what I want to spend the bulk of our time talking about today is why we should say I'm sorry. I feel like I got a lot of help from the person who wrote that article, Elizabeth Cottrell, on why we don't say I'm sorry. But I really just pulled out a pen and paper and thought about why do we say I'm sorry. Number 1 is it is a sign of strength. I get chapped. I get ticked off whenever I'm in an argument with someone, or I'm sideways with someone, and they say I'm sorry before I say I'm sorry. That really, really rubs me, because whoever says sorry first is the stronger person of the 2. Because the person who said sorry first saw further faster. They were able to see the big picture of their life, the big picture of the relationship. They were able to see it from an aerial view and not just be so narrow-minded and have tunnel vision. They were able to show this sign of strength of this moment right here is going to come and go. And even though I'm incredibly infuriated at what you did and what just happened, I can see further faster. It's just a reflection of strength. Whenever I'm in a situation and there's an altercation and I'm the one that calms it down, I'm the one that brought peace. I'm the one that brought it. I feel this sense of hopefully it's a good kind of pride that, hey, I swallowed my pride to create something that was bad, good. And that feels good. It's a good pride. I swallowed the bad pride. And I feel good about the fact that I was able to humble myself to create a good scenario. It's a sign of strength. Number 2 is it's a sign of humility. It's interesting in James in the Bible, James chapter 4, verse 1, it says, "Do not all quarrels and arguments come from the desire to be right." Isn't that interesting? The only reason why we're arguing, the only reason why we're fighting is we want the other person or other group of people or the opposing side to recognize that we are more right than them. And that's where the quarrel begins. A sign of humility says, I don't have to be right here. I don't have to win. I don't have to have you say, I'm wrong, you're right, Frankie. In James chapter 4, verse 6, it says that God himself opposes the proud. See, when you don't have that sign of humility, then you have a sign of pride, that you're so proud and prideful that God actually opposes you. And when I was putting these notes together, I actually had this thought. I thought, I wonder how many problems we have in our life because God himself is on the other side of the table opposing us. God himself is on the other side opposing. If we believe the Bible, that's exactly what it's saying, that he opposes proud people. Now you may say, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, I go to church. That doesn't mean that he doesn't oppose you. I love my children deeply, but when they are in the wrong and I'm standing up for what is right, maybe they're talking to their mother in a way that they shouldn't be talking to. They're talking to their brother or their sister in a way they shouldn't be talking to. They brought something in the house that is forbidden in our home. I am opposing my son. I am opposing my daughter. I am making life difficult for them because of what they're doing or what they did or what they're saying. I'm grounding them from their phone. I'm grounding them from social media or from TV. I'm opposing them. And we can't help but to wonder, it's not that God doesn't love us, but when we have this overwhelming sense of pride and there's no humility, the Bible says, I oppose the proud, but I raise up the humble. We're looking to be raised up. We're looking to be promoted. We're looking for him to grab us and raise us to places that we've never been to before. But it requires an act of humility. I heard somebody say one time, either you humble yourself or you will be humiliated. That will bring you to humility. It's just God is in this. And let's just say this, it's a sign of humility. And isn't humility attractive? Do you have a friend of yours that is sincerely humble and you look at him or you look at her and you just think, gosh, I wish I was like that? Because humility is attractive. When I heard this quote recently, great people talk about ideas. Average people talk about themselves, and little people talk about other people. See, when people talk about themselves or they talk about other people, there's nothing about that position that's attractive. But when they talk about ideas, or they're lifting other people up, or they're not shining the light on themselves all the time, it's so attractive. None of us love being around people who love themselves. Have you ever noticed that? People who love themselves are not attractive. They're not enjoyable to be around. They love to hear themselves talk. They love to look at themselves in the mirror. It's just not attractive. But humility is so attractive. And humility walks hand in hand with saying the words, I'm sorry. Number 3 is freedom. Now, I'm talking about why say I'm sorry, and I've only got 5 of them. Here's number 3. It gives a sense of freedom. The Bible talks about being at peace with all men, to be able to walk in any restaurant in the country, to be able to walk into an airport where everybody in your city is going to be in that airport at any given moment during the year, or could be in that airport at any given moment of the year, to be able to walk into any place and not be nervous that you're going to bump into somebody. That is so freeing. Now, I've said sorry to people just to have that freedom in my life, to sincerely say, I'm sorry. Now, maybe there's people in the city, there's people in the world that have something against me, but in my heart, I don't have anything against them. So I am sincerely free. Now let me make this abundantly clear. There are divine connections and there are divine disconnections. Divine disconnections is simply the relationships or the people that God probably doesn't want you hanging out with because they don't bring the best out in you. Now, they may be a good person and you're a good person, but you just don't go together very well. You don't bring the best out in them. They don't bring the best out in you. It's the reason why you choose not to marry somebody that you thought you were going to marry at one point. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them evil. It just doesn't pull the best out of you. It's time for you to go one way and them to go another way. And all of us have relationships like that where they just rub you. It's prickly. It just doesn't jive. It doesn't flow. And once again, it doesn't make you wrong, doesn't make them wrong. And so oftentimes you may say, I'm sorry to someone, sincerely forgive them, sincerely hope that they are forgiving you, not have any anger in your heart, not have any animosity in your heart, but to cognitively know this is not a good relationship for me. I'm going to make peace, but I'm also going to go in a different direction. But you have to make peace sincerely, because if you bump into them, can you honestly look at them and say, hey man, how are you? If you bump into them. But that doesn't mean you're going to ever seek them out again. I hope that makes sense. Number 4, if I can't say I'm sorry, is it because I haven't forgiven that person? See, unforgiveness is very, very powerful. And I say that because unforgiveness is unforgivable. See, God will not forgive people who do not forgive. It says it in the Bible in Mark chapter 11, verses 22 and 23. If we don't forgive others, God will not forgive us. Unforgiveness is unforgivable. And when we cannot say, I'm sorry, oftentimes it's because they have done something that we cannot get past. We cannot forgive them for what they've done. And I'll tell you, oftentimes we will forgive people only because we know we need mercy ourselves. Another reason why I can't say I'm sorry during certain times. And again, I can honestly do this podcast and say that I don't know of anybody on the planet that I haven't said sorry to. There's people that I've said sorry to that I know I'm never going to have a relationship with them again, but I've got to sincerely say I'm sorry for what I've done. I've got to sincerely forgive them for what they've done, and we've walked away peacefully. And I hope there's nothing in my heart over that. And so I do that partly because I know I'm going to need mercy when I stand before God. And he will not give it to me. Here's another reason why unforgiveness is so powerful. Satan instantly has an advantage over you when you don't apologize. In 2 Corinthians chapter 2, 10 and 11, it says that he actually has a foothold, a grip. Every time I think about this, I think about climbing a tree. When I was a kid, I'd always put my foot on a branch and kind of press on it with part of my weight, not all of my weight, just part of my weight, to make sure that that branch was stable enough to hold me. And so I'd put part of my weight on it. And if I thought, okay, yeah, this branch can hold me, then I'd put all of my weight on me. And I felt secure. I feel more confident that I'm going to be able to conquer this tree by climbing it because I have found a foothold. That's exactly what Satan does. If you are not forgiving someone, he has a foothold. He feels very confident. He has the upper hand. He has an advantage over us at that moment. Here's another thought on unforgiveness. My relationship with God, your relationship with God is hindered when you do not forgive people. Watch this in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. It says, treat your wife as you should, so that your prayers will not be hindered. It's a popular thing, and it's easy to get into a fight with your wife or get into a fight with your husband and then decide, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to freeze you out. We're not going to talk for like 5 days. If you're not talking to your wife and your wife is not talking to you, I can promise you this, Satan is talking to both of you. Your relationship with God is instantly hindered. There has been many times where I've said to myself, hey, I just got into a heated argument with my wife. I've got to go make that better because I don't want my relationship on hold with God for any amount of time, not for an hour, not for a day, not for a week, not for a month. I don't want it on hold. I want to be constantly moving in direction of getting closer and closer and closer with God. And that stops, that gets hindered when I am not treating my wife properly. Number 5 is it creates a culture. When I say I'm sorry, when my wife hears me say I'm sorry, my wife is sharp enough to be able to realize, hey, my goodness, Frankie says sorry, I don't. My kids hear me say I'm sorry. I apologize to my kids. You create a culture of humility by leading with I'm sorry. I hope these things or these pointers have helped you guys out today. I hope it's encouraged you today. Let me close with this. Everyone is going to spend eternity somewhere, so stay ready. And then number 2, go out, make the extra effort, be outstanding, shock the world. I'll talk to you next time. Ciao.